able to. So let me just start the recording. And then we're just going to jump right in. So like I said, we have a lot of information to cover. So I'm just going to move along, but we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions. We can go over different things as well as the program goes on. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Feel free to add in the chat and we'll go over that. I'll try to keep an eye on it, but we'll also be answering as much as we move along. So yeah, this is our first of 12 region-specific trainings. We wanted to do this to try to make sure that we're empowering each neighborhood council for the information about the election, and then answer any questions. And also just be here and show that, you know, we're all in this together and we're here to help. So my name is Michael Ectrich. I'm with the Office of the City Clerk, along with Lene Basuto is on the line. She is an election administrator. So she's a few of you in here will be working directly with her. And then we have Mary Lou, who is with Empower LA, and she oversees a lot of the outreach aspect of the neighborhood council election. So she'll give a chance to kind of talk about what that means and how that's going to work. So with that, I'm going to jump right in and we'll go over the meeting agenda for today. So first, we're going to go over election documents and just give kind of a brief overview of what we use to create the elections. We're going to go over the candidate filing process. We're also going to cover the all vote by mail election process. Since this election, our office was only funded to provide all vote by mail elections. So I'll inform everyone of what that's going to look like. Then we're going to go over some election resources. And then we'll have some time for questions, but also before that as well, Mary Lou will have some time to give a little presentation on the outreach efforts for the upcoming election season. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. So what I wanted to do is kind of highlight the sections of the bylaws that we use to come up with the blueprint of the neighborhood council election. That's really, you know, what we do is we come up with the administration of the election season, but we know that each neighborhood council has its own bylaws. And so we adapt the election for each neighborhood council based off their bylaws. So the sections that we use, the first one is Article 3, which covers all of the boundaries of the neighborhood council. Then we use Article 4, which is a stakeholder definition. Prior to 2020, this was a little bit more complicated because each neighborhood council kind of had their own definition. However, now there is the ordinance, the city ordinance defines the stakeholder. Next, Article 5 outlines the governing board. It also talks about if there's term limits, if there's staggered seating. Sometimes it has the staggered seating outlined there. And then it will also just have little details about the board structure. Next is Article 10, which outlines the elections, covers things like the voter verification type, if candidates can run for more than one seat, just if there's any kind of special election rules. Sometimes there's some NCs where voters may be eligible to receive multiple ballots. So that's kind of discussed in Article 10. Next is Attachment A. So that's the map, which just pulls from Article 3. We use that. And then lastly is Attachment B, which outlines not only the governing board, but the qualifications to run for those seats and the voter qualifications for those seats. So that's really what we pull from when we're talking about creating the election. Earlier, I talked about the ordinance for stakeholder types. So there's 4 stakeholder types across all neighborhood councils. The first one is live, which is just any stakeholder who resides within the neighborhood council boundaries. The second one is work. So that's anyone who provides services within the neighborhood council boundaries. Third is owning property. That's kind of the shortened definition because it's really owning real property within neighborhood council boundaries. And then fourth is community interest. This is the definition that has been in place since the 2021 neighborhood council elections, which is defined as a person. Oh, sorry, moving too fast. Defined as a person who participates in a nonprofit organization that has continuously maintained a physical street address for not less than 1 year, and that performs ongoing verifiable activities and operations that benefit the neighborhood council. Maureen Smith, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, this is for Bella Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. Am I in the right place?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
cool. Thank you.
It also covers Bella Beverly Crest too. So, so those are the 4 stakeholder types. And so there's the stakeholder definitions and then the bylaws, and we take that information and we create the ballot voting model. So everyone in Region 11 should have received their ballot voting model from their election administrator. And briefly, I'll just kind of go over it to make sure that we all know how to read that. Because I know it can be, a lot sometimes. So we always have the NC name up top, along with the abbreviation that's going to be used throughout the election. It will have the ballot types. So this can be anywhere from 1 to 21, I believe is the NC that has the most. Also ballots issued. So that means how many ballots each stakeholder can receive. So in this NC, there's only 1. There's some NCs where it might be up to 10. It really depends on what the structure is, as outlined by the bylaws. Board seats, so that's how many board seats there are in that neighborhood council. And then it also lists how many of those are up for election. The term for those seats, the voting age, the voter verification, which is self-affirmation documentation. We'll get into those kind of big differences shortly. Candidate restrictions. This is anything that will be in Article 10. Most common is the one that's listed here, which is candidates can run for no more than 1 board seat. But sometimes there might be specific and talk about if they're in a different elected seat, things like that. Other election related language can be anything from the bylaws. Here, what we've started to do is we're listing any shared boundaries or shared assets. We want to list that here just to make it easy so anyone who's looking at the ballot voting model, including our staff, could easily see this one, for example, Venice High is a shared property between different neighborhood councils. And then we've also included the vote by mail period, just so it's easy access of when that period is. And below that, we have a breakdown of each ballot. So we would, in the bold here, we show what the ballot name is. Underneath that, we have the qualifications to receive that ballot. And then we have a breakdown of which seats are going to be on that ballot and the number of seats that would be up for election. So for example, here, there's only 1 Zone 1 director, but there are 7 at-large director seats that would be on that ballot. So, Kay Hartman, I will follow up to see why you didn't get that ballot voting model, but I will definitely reach out to you right after this. I'll email you to see. I'll email you that and see if that didn't work. So, Next, I want to go over the candidate filing kind of process a little bit. So for Region 11, the candidate filing period is going to be November 15th, which is next Friday, through December 30th, 2024. Whenever I talk about deadlines today, we do have all of the deadlines at 11:59 p.m. on that day. So on December 30th, the deadline for candidate filing is going to be at 11:59 p.m. So when we talk about candidate filing, the candidate filing period is open for 45 calendar days for each region. Candidates have two ways that they can apply. There's going to be one way, which is through the NC portal. I'll kind of show you that whole process and what the portal is going to look like to file. And then we also have paper applications. When it comes to paper applications, we will have those translated versions available on our website. All of them will be available in a PDF fillable format. So if someone doesn't want to go through the portal, but they feel comfortable going to our website, filling out a PDF form, they can then email it to our office. They can also print it out and fill it out. We will also be working with libraries and park and rec locations to have some applications available. I'll get to that a little bit later in the presentation. One thing that's often kind of can be a little bit lost when we talk about candidates, all candidates are required to provide documentation proving stakeholder status. And so whenever we talk about required documentation, we're looking for a photo ID, so proof of identity, proof of age, because age is a requirement for every candidate, and proof of stakeholder status. So if they chose live, they have to prove that they live. If they have community interest, they have to have community interest. It's whatever those in attachment B, which I referenced earlier, whatever those qualifications are, that's what the candidate will have to provide documentation proving. So once we review a candidate application and we have the documentation, everything in the application looks good, we're able to certify that candidate. So what our office is going to do is we will work with anyone, whether we get a paper application that's not filled out all the way, or if we get an application that doesn't have documentation, we will be reaching out to those candidates to work with them to see what kind of documentation they have, and we'll be able to provide us so that we can certify them. So I will go over all of the website and everything shortly. One thing to note is the moment that once someone is certified, that documentation is deleted. We don't hold on to any of their documentation. Documentation is, again, the moment that someone is certified is deleted. We still have our notes so that we can refer to those when we talk about how we certified someone, but we don't have, if someone provides a driver's license, for example, we don't maintain that driver's license in our files. And so I do see that question, Teresa. So if someone is running again, that is why someone has to supply their documentation again, not only because it's deleted, but the bylaws do always state that it has to be current. So that's why we always need documentation proving current stakeholder status. So once someone is certified, there is a period of time that any stakeholder can challenge that candidate. This can only happen to certified candidates. We don't want to, challenge pending candidates because they haven't proven stakeholder status yet. So there's not really anything to challenge yet because they haven't even proven their stakeholder status. But the moment that they're challenged, there is an opportunity to challenge them. Most common would be to question if, maybe they've reached their term limit. That's the most common kind of candidate challenge. And then after through all of this, 60 days prior to the election, we release the certified list of candidates. So this is everyone that's going to be on the board. And then we also, in addition, we do release the contact information to these candidates to each NC board, so that let's say that there's a candidate forum, that board would be able to reach out to those candidates to invite them to the forum. So that's the candidate filing process. And then I'm going to share a different screen really quick because I want to go through the applications with everyone. So this is an example of a filled out application of our 2025 candidate filing application. So we've tried to make it pretty simple and self-explanatory. As I mentioned though, if we get a name and a phone number, we'll be working with that candidate. So it has some information on the period for candidate filing. And then the portion that the candidate fills out is they can fill out the neighborhood council, the seat they would like to run for. Then we have the candidate information. So this is the name that's going to be on the ballot. They have the option to add any pronouns. They can add their first name, last name, birth year, a phone number, an email address. Then they also answer if they're a current board member for that neighborhood council. This is really to help with so that we can know about term limits. And then also they can initial to agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. That is an option. And then the next is where they would supply their qualifying address. So that's however they are a stakeholder. So it's broken down into those 4 categories. So if they live, they can put where they live. If they work, they can put where they work. And that includes the organization name. So as you can see here, they kind of filled that out. And after each section, they can kind of give a little bit more detail, which is really helpful when it comes to candidates, because there might be a ballot for employees and there might be a ballot for owners, business owners. So this really helps us get to a little bit more information about the candidate. So they just fill out that information. Next, there's a documentation, so they can include any documentation they're attaching to their application. So for example, here, this person is including a driver's license and a pay stub. And then they sign under penalty of perjury and date. It also includes our contact information if there's any questions. And the second page provides an option for them to provide a candidate statement. And they can also attach a photo, and it gives just kind of the details about the statement here. So that's kind of the paper application. What I want to go through is the portal. So the portal is going to be accessible on our website. We'll have a direct link to the portal. One kind of big change we have this year, which I think we're all excited about, and we've made this change based off feedback from previous years. So last election cycle in 2023, to get to the portal, you had to go through Angelino account. That's not the case any longer, and this is both for candidates and voters. You can sign up directly through the portal. It's a pretty easy process. So if someone's going for the first time, they could just click right here, need an account, register here. And they just put their first name, last name, email confirmation, and hit create. They receive an email to confirm, that it is their email. And then in that link, they will get a link just to confirm, and then they create a password. And it's as easy as that, as they now have an account. And then I see the question Helen, if live stakeholders who are candidates, yes. So if someone lives, I'll kind of try to cover this a little bit, but if someone lives, a driver's license covers all of those three categories. So that's all that would be needed to verify stakeholder status for someone who lives. Maureen, I see your question. How do you know if you have an account? If you have an account and you try to register here, it it will tell you that you have an account. However, this way of logging in is brand new. So no one would have an account for this section. Hopefully next year or next election season, we'll be able to retain all that. But everyone will have to start with creating an account. And once you create an account, so let's say that we've created one, I have an email and password, so I can just log in. And the portal, when we talk about the NC portal, is always, it's going to be the same for candidates and voters, just to make things less confusing and not have to have people create usernames and passwords for two different portals. So for the first one, I can see, the candidate tab is highlighted here, and you would just click create candidate application. So you do that. And we have the candidate application broken up into 5 different steps. Try to make it pretty simple and not seem as intense when it's broken down into these sections. And you'll see as we go through that it's pretty simple. So the first one, you just select your neighborhood council. So I'm going to select Mar Vista. And as soon as you select Mar Vista, you can then, once that's selected, you will then see an option to select the seats that are up for election. So let's say this board has, let's say it has 10 different zones, but maybe only 7 of those zones are up for election. So it's only going to show that. In Mar Vista's case, all the seats are up for election, but it's only going to show the seats that are up for election. So, but I'm going to choose, the at-large director. Once the stakeholder chooses the seat, the requirements for that seat show up at the top here, so that they're able to see what the requirements are for that. And it changes for each one. So if I chose zone 6, it's going to be whatever specific for that seat. So I'll choose at large here. And then they can choose which stakeholder type they are. So I'm going to choose live here. And then, are you a current board member in this neighborhood council? So that you just click yes or no. So I'll say no for that. Once I do that, I'm done with step 1. So now it's just going to be candidate information. So it's pretty basic. So it's, what name do you want on the ballot? So I'll just put, so that will be the name I want in the ballot. Pronouns, that's again, just optional. This is only, pronouns only show on the candidate website. And then the first name and last name and email, that's all pulled from your registration data, but it can be changed here. So like, for example, I can just put Victor there, but let's say the last name is correct. So that information always pulls, and that's pulls for both the candidate and voter. Helen, I see your question about can different voters use the same email to register? No, each email has to be tied to one account, and that account will only be able to have one application in for voters, but I'll get into that when we go over to the voter section a little bit. And so we have lastly, it's date of birth in this section. So I'll just put date of birth, and then you can include a phone number. We always recommend including your phone number, but it is optional. So if a candidate does not want to share that, they can click here. And then there's also the option to click here. This is if they agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. But if someone doesn't click it, it doesn't stop anything. So we'll just click next. So now we're in step 3. So step 3 is going to be the qualifying address. So let me. The question is date of birth listed publicly? No, that is not. That is only for our purposes to prove, to match to the documentation. We do not provide date of birth information. Within our handbook, we have a very detailed list of the information that we provide. We don't provide qualifying address or date of birth when that's requested. And so you can just type in a address here. So let's say that whether I put that I work, if I put that I live, or if I own real property or have community interest, the qualifying address is whatever address is tied to my stakeholder status. So if I chose work, this would be my work address. If I chose community interest, because let's say that I have community interest because I go to a church, this would be the church address. So once the address is entered, someone can click verify qualifying address. And the map of the neighborhood council will pop up. One thing to note, so this map is going to be tied to whatever seat, whatever the requirements are for that seat. For example, because I chose at large, the whole neighborhood council here is highlighted. But if the seat was for zone 3, only zone 3 would be highlighted. That's just really to help candidates. If an address is mapped outside of the boundaries, it's not going to stop them from filing. They will be able to file, and what we'll do is we'll double check on our records whether that address is within the boundaries or not. And then we'll contact the voter or candidate. If let's say that they put that they want to run for zone 4, but they're clearly in zone 3, we would notify them of that, and then see if they want to run for a different seat, or maybe they have a different stakeholder status. So just hit close on that because that's verified. Then there's the option to add a mailing address. This is completely optional. They can put same as qualifying address. If they click different from qualifying, just a drop down where they can enter their address or decline to state. And then click next. So when we talk about candidate filing, it really has two deadlines. There's the candidate filing deadline and then the documentation deadline, which is 3 calendar days following that. So as soon as I accept the 2 pop-up windows that are about to happen, that will mean that my candidate filing application has been submitted. So I've met that by the deadline. So the first box is just confirming under penalty of perjury, everything that you've listed is accurate. And then just a little reminder, the documentation is required to certify a candidate. So you click accept and you can submit. Next is the pop-up for the neighborhood council board member candidate for election board service acknowledgement and affirmation form. This is a requirement that all candidates agree to. We do have this available on our website. If someone wants to review, there's a lot of knowledge and information in this form. So it's understood that like maybe someone doesn't want to read it all right now. But this has been a requirement since 2021. And so you can scroll through and then click accept. And once you hit submit, your application is considered submitted. So that brings us to the 4th tab, the 4th section of the application. This is where you can provide documentation. So it will always have proof of ID, and then proof of whichever stakeholder status I chose here. So this one I chose live, so it will have proof of live. However, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, let's say that someone chose live, so they just want to show their valid driver's license. They can upload it here. And by doing that, you just select from the dropdown. So you can select California driver's license. You can select the file. So I'll select a driver's license and it's been uploaded. And you get a little pop-up to let you know that it's been updated. Our staff will review it. And let's say that you know that that qualifies you, you can just hit next. You don't have to upload another documentation. If you want to, you can, but we only really need that. And once you do that, we'll just review that driver's license and confirm that that meets all of the requirements and you can be certified that way. And so I've uploaded my documentation. This takes me to step 5. Step 5 is completely optional. This is where candidates can provide a candidate photo and statement. So this will go on the candidate website, which will be linked in all of the vote by mail instructions. There will be a QR code and a URL so that voters can go to this page to review all of the candidate photos and statements for candidates. If someone does not want to provide a photo or statement, that is okay. Their name will still be listed there. They just won't have a photo or statement visible. So if you want to upload a photo, you can hit upload picture, select the file. So you'll select the file. And then down here, you get to preview what the photo looks like. And so I'll say, I'm okay with this. So I'll hit use this image. And then there's an option to include your statement. So all candidate statements are limited to 1,000 characters. That's characters including punctuation, spaces, everything like that. So once I do that, I can just start my candidate statement. So I'll hit vote for me. And as you can see down here, once I started to enter, we have it so you can easily track. So I've used 13 characters so far, but I have 1,000 maxed out. So you can kind of gauge it that way. And then you click save. Yes, that is a great question. So candidate photos and statements can be filed after the application. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you could technically submit a new candidate photo and statement every day up until the deadline, which is 35 days prior to the election. You can keep, maybe you put a statement and you want to add to it later. You can definitely do that. One thing I do want to note is candidate photos and statements do not get posted on the candidate website until our office has reviewed it. We do this only because it's been very common that someone might they might accidentally upload their driver's license, maybe their deed. That's happened more often than you know. And so before we were reviewing it, that was just posted on the candidate website and easily accessible to anyone who was on that site. So to avoid that, we just have it go through our process just to make sure that it doesn't have any sensitive information on it. So you hit save. And that's all it takes to file an application. This is a test site, so I have lots of applications in here. So you can see I've had a few that I've withdrawn, but every time that you fill out an application, you'll get what we call kind of a candidate tile. So you're able to see what kind of pull one that's a little bit better. I guess this is going to be the best one, but you're going to see the candidate photo up here, the candidate name, which NC it is, the seat, and you can see the important deadlines right there. So it's just kind of like a quick view of that application, and you can always check the status here. So like for this one, for example, it's submitted. This one up here, we have certified. So that application is good to go. And you can always just log in. And I have the deadline for this one is passed, but there's the candidate photo and statement button. You can just easily click on that and the photo and statement option will pop up and you can just upload that photo and edit that statement as much as you'd like. And so that is the candidate filing process. So I'm going to go back to the other presentation. So just give me a quick second. All right, so we went through the candidate filing application. We went through the portal. So now I want to talk about the all vote by mail process. So as I mentioned, so our office was only funded to provide all vote by mail for neighborhood councils. So I want to kind of break down what that process is going to look like. The vote by mail dates for Region 11 are January 17th to March 9th. So the first step is the VBM application is submitted. One thing to note when it comes to vote by mail with neighborhood councils, well, voter registration as a whole, voters must register every election for that neighborhood council. The reason for that is because of the qualifications can often change for different ballots within the bylaws. We just want to make sure that we are providing all of the correct ballots for what that stakeholder is eligible for. So everyone, even if they've registered since that neighborhood council has been established, will have to register this election season. So once they do that, the next step, once our office receives their application, we'll just verify their stakeholder status and their eligibility to vote based off the bylaws. Next, so once we've hit the mailing period, the ballot packet will be mailed. The three main things that are going to be in that ballot packet are going to be the ballot or ballots based off the bylaws, because maybe it's an NC where they can receive multiple ballots. The voter instructions for that region. We have enhanced the voter instructions to include, as I mentioned, information on where they can find information on the candidates. It will also make sure to highlight where the deadline for our office to receive the ballots and the election day. It also in this packet will include a prepaid return envelope. So step after that, so stakeholder receives it, they vote, it's great. And next is ballot returned. So the ballot envelope can be returned to our office three different ways. One is USPS, that's with that prepaid return envelope. We are going to have neighborhood council ballot boxes throughout the region. We've been partnering with libraries and rec and park facilities to have applications and ballot boxes available. And then they can always be dropped off in our office as well. One thing I do want to note is for all these four different steps where you see an asterisk, notification emails will be sent to the voters to let them know about the status of their ballot. So they will get an email when their application has been submitted. They'll get an email when they've been verified as a stakeholder status, along with the date when the ballots will start to be mailed. They'll receive an email when the ballot has been mailed. This way they can kind of track, let's say the ballot was mailed 10 days ago, they can contact our office and we can send them a resend, just so they can track that. And then also they'll receive an email once the ballot has been received by our office, just to let them know, okay, they've put it in the mail, we've received it, or if they put it in the ballot box, our office has now received their ballot. So they receive emails, notifications on all of those steps. What I wanted to go over is voter verification. So there's two different, voter verification types. When we talk about neighborhood councils, there's self-affirmation and documentation. This is chosen by the neighborhood council. And so we just administer as outlined in the bylaws. And so when we talk about voter verification, there's three different things that we're looking for. So the first one is identity. So with self-affirmation, they're just filling out the voter registration form and they provide their information on the application. When we talk about documentation, we need documentation that's a photo ID. For example, most common is going to be a driver's license. Next is age. So we need proof of age because all voters have the requirement. Most seats, it's 16 years or older. Unless we have U seats, then we're talking as young as 14. So with self-affirmation, they're just providing the date of birth on the application. When we talk about documentation, we need a document that has that date of birth on it. For example, again, driver's license, perfect, easy, covers that. Next is stakeholder status. So self-affirmation, they're just providing on the application the qualifying address. Like I mentioned for candidates, so if they have community interest because they go to a church, they would list the church address on the application, and that qualifies them. With documentation, we need a document with that stakeholder status information. So that could be a utility bill. I just provided that because like oftentimes we might have a driver's license doesn't have their current address. And if it doesn't have their current address, a utility bill can be paired with a driver's license and that can certify the candidate. So if let's say that they have community interest, just going back to that option, like let's say that they go to a church, they can get a letter from that church stating that they have stakeholder status in that area. And they can pair that with their driver's license, and that can be enough documentation. If there's ever any questions about documentation, I always recommend calling our office. We have a lot of staff available to help assist stakeholders, whether candidates or voters, through the documentation process. I wanted to kind of highlight a few of the little differences with the stakeholder registration options. So just like candidates, they have the online registration option, which I'll kind of show you through the portal. When it comes to voter registration, it will be available 51 days through the portal. And a great benefit of going through the portal is that they're able to track their application ballot status the whole time from start to finish. They can log in at any point in the portal and see what their status is for their application. The other option is a paper registration form. The paper registration form is actually available for a longer period. This is a request from neighborhood councils just to kind of help with the process, to try to help with outreach and make sure that they're able to reach more stakeholders. So that paper registration form is going to be available 81 days. It will be available 81 days. And it's also just like candidate applications, it'll be available translated on our page. We will also have it a fillable form, PDF form. So whatever is the preference there. A great kind of option with the paper registration form is voters can designate an authorized agent to collect applications. So when we talk about the portal, each stakeholder who is going through the portal to register has to have an account. You can only submit one application per account. However, when it's paper registration, you can hand out applications, collect them, and there's a portion of that application that can be filled out. So let's say that I'm a candidate and I want to walk my neighborhood and get all of my neighbors to vote for me. I can go knock on doors, hand out my application, have them fill it out, have that authorized agent section filled out, collect all of those applications and return it to our office. This can be a big benefit, especially with neighborhood councils, because maybe in neighborhood councils, they can have events, and anytime there's an event or a meeting, you can hand out applications, have it filled out, designate a person and collect those applications. So that's a big benefit of paper applications. So let me see. Let me share a different screen real quick. All right. So this is the vote by mail application. It's very similar to the candidate application, just a few slight differences. So they can list their neighborhood council. We also just have some information if they want to look up the website to look up the map. Because if they're not sure, we find lots of times, honestly, with paper applications that the neighborhood council isn't filled out because maybe they don't know the name of their neighborhood council. Maybe they only know the district name. So this can be blank or it can be wrong, but this way they can at least look it up if they would like to. If it's blank, we'll look it up for them. They provide their first name, middle name, last name, birth year, phone number, and email address. And then they also have the option to include to initial if they would like to receive text from Empower LA about neighborhood councils. And then we again just have the different information. So this person has put a live address and they've also included a community interest information. So we always say complete all that apply, because if in that neighborhood council, maybe they live in one zone and then community interest is in a different. And so then now they might be eligible to receive multiple ballots for each area that they have stakeholder status in. So we would take that information and review that. Then they include a mailing address. So this could be whatever address that they want their ballot mailed to. And then they just sign under penalty of perjury that information is correct. And then down here, you see the authorized agent area. So you can write the name of that person. So for this example, again, so I'm on the board. I've handed this to stakeholders. So Sophia has then filled out this application and she's authorizing me to turn it in for her. So I've just filled out this area that, so that we can track who provided this application. So that's the paper application. Let me go through the voter form real quick. Sorry, so I'm going to go, it's going to be that same login page. So let me log out real quick. But you would log in here, that same option to create an account. You log in. Instead of candidate, you just click voter. And you hit create voter application. So the first step is voter information. So what that's going to be, again, it's going to pull the first name, last name, and email from that registration. This can definitely be changed if desired. Like, let's say I used this email to register my account, but I actually monitor a different email. I can input that here, and all of those voter notifications I talked about will go to that email. And if our office has any questions about the application, we'll use that email as the primary email to contact them. So I'll just leave the first name, last name, and then I'll include a date of birth. And I just to reference one thing, I know that a lot of people are hesitant to provide their full date of birth. I totally understand that. So as long as they're old enough, so for when we talk about voters, so that's over 16 years of age, we're okay to put 0101 and then the year. That's definitely okay on our end. So that's what I did here. And then you can list if you would like, if you'd prefer to be contacted via email or phone. So in this one, I'll just leave it as email. And you can leave the phone number blank or you can input one. And then this is where they can click if they would like to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. So then they go to the next step. So one thing to note is voter applications in the portal are 2 or 3 steps. It's going to be 2 steps if it's if it's self-affirmation. It's going to be 3 steps if it's documentation. So for example, so if I click Mar Vista, you'll see that a 3rd step added here, and that's going to be documentation. It's going to look just like candidates uploading documentation. That process is the same. But if I chose Del Rey, it's only going to be a 2-step because it's just self-affirmation. So I just have to provide that information. And so now I get to choose the stakeholder types that I qualify for. So let's say like that paper application, I'll choose live. Once you choose live, pop-up comes here for the resident address. And then if I chose community interest as well, community interest organization option will be added here. But I'll just do live to make it easier so you don't have to see me type as much. But you can type in an address. And so once that has been typed in, you can click verify address. And just like candidate, it's going to show the boundaries of that neighborhood council. So here you can see the neighborhood council is outlined, and here it says addresses within boundaries. Just like candidates, let's say that for some reason it is mapping outside, it's not going to stop that voter from submitting. They can still submit. We'll just review on our end to see if there's maybe an error in the address that's typed or anything, and we'll just work with that voter. So I can hit close on that, and then they add their, just copy it to make it easier. They can put their mailing address. And they can click verify mailing address, which is a system that takes that address and compares it to what USPS needs. Similar to almost every site when you order online and you click that you want something shipped to you, and then it has the pop-up of like, is this address correct? You can do that here, or when they hit submit, it's going to pop up. So I'll just hit submit to kind of show what that's going to look like. So it's just like this. So you can, it added it because of those 4 digits after the zip code. So it's just saying, this is the USPS format. They can click no. I prefer to use use the address I provided, or they can just click yes, and it changes it. Then they agree to penalty of perjury and submit, and their application has been submitted. So just like candidates, so they'll have a tile for each application that they've input. So technically, there could be a stakeholder in all NCs having an election this season. So there's, I believe, 90 NCs having elections. So technically, each account will be able to submit 90 applications. So and then you'd be able to, like I stated earlier, you can always log in and you can check the status of the application here. So like this one's mailed, This one's under review. This one's locked reviewed because I just opened that one. This one could be awaiting ballot assignment. And so they can always log in and see what the status is there. So lastly, let me go back to the presentation. Let me see, I think I have a question before I get back to it. Let's see. So I do have a question. Sorry. So this is going back to candidates. What are the rules when someone withdraws? So there is a deadline to withdraw from the neighborhood council elections. Let's say that someone wants to withdraw, I'd say 30 days prior to the election. That's going to be too late to withdraw. Their name is still going to be on the ballot because those ballots have already been created and likely mailed to candidates. So it's going to be too late. I always recommend whenever there's a candidate who would like to withdraw, and so it's 30 days, they can't upload they can't put on their statement that they've withdrawn. They can contact our office and we'll be able to change their statement to say, I've withdrawn, I'm no longer interested in running, just so that information is available there. But however, once it reaches a certain point, the withdrawal deadline has passed, they're going to be on the ballot because, again, ballots have already been created and produced. We do always recommend that those candidates reach out to the neighborhood council. We can definitely look into maybe we can notify the neighborhood council as well. But we typically know, and previous experiences, usually the NC might even know that a candidate's withdrawn before we even do. So we really try to stay in contact about those. So I can definitely look into maybe we can be a little bit more proactive about those. So let me just get back to the presentation. I know I've been going through a lot of information. I appreciate everyone's patience. I did want to kind of highlight some important vote by mail dates for Region 11. The first one is going to be vote by mail application opens. So that's going to be on Friday, January 17th. Ballot mailing begins. So that's going to be Tuesday, February 11th. The vote by mail application period ends on Sunday, March 9th. The deadline to request a resend is going to be Tuesday, March 11th. The reason for that date is just to assure that, there's enough time for us to get that ballot in the mail and for that voter to receive it. Because we've often had times where someone requests a resend, we send it, but there's no time for it to get to that voter. And then election day is Tuesday, March 18th. And the deadline to receive postmarked ballots is Friday, March 28th. So we've maintained doing a 10-day after election day postmark date to give plenty of time for those ballots to get to our office. They do have to be postmarked on election day, though. And then I do see, sorry if I missed it, but can you provide the website where can it? Yes, what I'll do is in the chat in a little bit, I'll include our website, which will have all of the information, includes the timeline, handbook, everything like that. And then on March, or not March, sorry, been talking about March too much. November 15th, next Friday, there will be an icon for the portal that will take people to that registration page directly. Paper applications will be available at libraries and rec and park locations. For candidate filing, they'll be available starting on the 15th. For the paper applications, will be available at those locations starting January 17th. We will have the applications available on our website though, if needed. And then so there's no in-person voting. All NC elections this time are going to be vote by mail. So they do need to fill out that form to receive a vote by mail ballot. So hope that kind of clarifies that. So when we talk about returning ballots, we have 3 different ways to return ballots. I'll finish this and then we'll kind of get into the selection situation. So when we talk about returning ballots, they can be returned with USPS, which is using that postage page envelope that's comes with the ballot. They can also be returned at library or rec and park locations. Every region will have a few. So there's a few. So we're not able to have one for every NC, but we do have a few available throughout the region. And then they can also be dropped off at our office at any time. So for Region 11, we're using library locations. So these are the 3 libraries that we're able to use in Region 11. We will have the list of the libraries where these are available on our website starting on the 15th. So these locations can be used. They will be used to have candidate filing applications, vote by mail applications, and then they will also have ballot boxes available. I want to highlight the neighborhood council election administrators. So in our office, we have 4 different election administrators. They're assigned to multiple different NCs. And so right here, and this list is available on our website. I'll get that link in the chat. But we have under each election administrator, we have which NCs they're working with, along with their email. So I believe they've sent multiple emails out already. So always feel free to reach out to your election administrator. They're always available. If you'd prefer to jump on a phone and talk to them, always an option. So then I just want to touch briefly, we have a neighborhood council election toolkit that we'll be sending out to all neighborhood councils. And what that's going to include is an NC information guide, a useful tool that will explain what NCs are, how to get involved. So this is something that could be handed out to stakeholders. There's going to be NC election FAQs. So any frequently asked questions about candidates and voters, and we'll be updating that throughout the season. Candidate resources, so where you can find paper applications, videos, guidelines, things of that nature. Voter resources, again, similar to candidates, so that's going to be where you can find the paper applications, voter guide, and videos on requesting a ballot. And election resources, so this is going to show, the regional election schedule, election timeline, and the documentation guide to help any voters who may have complicated documentation requirements, such as maybe they are an employee, but they don't know what documentation to provide. That the documentation guide really breaks down what we need for that voter. And so with that, you're going to get, I'm going to hand it off to Mary Lou, and then we're going to go through and, just open it up for questions. So.
Thank you, Michael. That was very informative. I'm gonna attempt to share my screen, and please let me know if you can see. I'm gonna move stuff around here.
It's
Yeah, okay.
started, but it's a little spotty, but I think it's starting to show.
Yeah, I don't have a second screen, so for some reason, let me see. Gonna, so while I move stuff around to make sure that you can see my screen, I saw that, there was a question, regarding, and I stopped it just to move. So there was a question, regarding where can you find, or where do you know where to find a paper application? And we will be working on our Empower LA website to make sure that we have a lookup tool that will also help with looking up. Okay, I'm gonna try a different format to make sure. Does this work best?
Yeah, that looks better.
Okay, and I'll see if I'll try and do full screen here. Um, okay. I think the window's still in the way, but I'll move stuff around. Okay. Give me a second while I move stuff to make sure that my window is optimized. Okay. So thank you for bearing with me. So with that said, I'm joining here today to kind of complement Michael's presentation on the election process. So as you all know, September 30th, we did a town hall presentation that covered a lot of the efforts that our department is currently working on during the election cycle to do awareness and engagement around the election process. So with that in mind, today's presentation is meant to kind of provide a high level kind of summary of that presentation. And for those that are in attendance, if you didn't attend the September 30 town hall, I can go ahead and reach out to you and provide you a direct link, or you can reach out to your NEA to get a link on the presentation. With that said, obviously our vision is to increase engagement by way of increasing the number of candidates, voters, and just overall increasing neighborhood council awareness. I think that's really important. This is a great way for us to kind of begin a lot of intentional engagement so that it translates to more individuals coming to your meetings, being part of your committees, and obviously hopefully being a candidate and voting as in the neighborhood council election process. So with that said, we created a framework for engagement. So the department has identified different objectives and different milestones that we want to reach as part of it, mostly focused around messaging and communications. And engaging the different communities in Los Angeles. As you all know, there's about 4 million people throughout the city of Los Angeles. We just had a general election. People may be going through election fatigue, voting fatigue. So we want to make sure that we message out neighborhood council elections as a way for people to get involved locally in their community. So with that, we're going to be working on messaging with our community partners, city departments, so community-based organizations that are in your community, city departments, LA City staff, city departments that provide direct services to individuals in the community. Along with those services, provide messaging that there's an election happening in their neighborhood. We also look forward to working in coordination with the city clerk's office, with the LA Public Library, doing some in-person and virtual presentations to potential candidates and voters. We're going to be working in close with Rec and Parks, and a lot of different departments throughout the city, including the Youth Development Department to promote youth engagement across the neighborhood council system, and LEDWP to provide messaging to those that receive services from the city. So lots to share on that end, but also a very focused effort to do candidate and voter engagement. So as Michael shared, there'll be many opportunities for us to touch base with potential candidates, and once they do become candidates, be able to share best practices with them on how they can help us with get out the vote and be part of and be messengers. Voter engagement, obviously. A lot of that will be done in person because we want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible. So with the all vote by mail election, in-person events are going to be critical. Events where we can explain what the neighborhood council is, connect them to neighborhood councils themselves, and be able to kind of bridge that information gap. So with that, we hope to partner with neighborhood councils. If you have any upcoming events, once we have our materials ready to go, we'll be able, through the NEAs, be able to provide you that material and also be able to join you at upcoming events. That includes a lot of get out the vote events, be able to do canvassing in neighborhoods, which is something that we hope to do across all 91 neighborhood councils that are having elections. So with that said, we look forward to have not only provide support, but have some coordination and some real partnership with neighborhood councils. We will also be focusing and making an investment in advertisement. I know that I reached out to the outreach chairs in the West Side neighborhood councils, and they provided great feedback on some micro newspapers, some advertisement opportunities. With that said, if you all have additional suggestions on where we could tailor advertisement for the West Side region, please let me know. I have a couple of micro newspapers I'm currently in coordination with. So any additional feedback is strongly appreciated. With that said, today's presentation, I also wanted to focus on some of the framework that we suggest that also neighborhood councils take lead on. Obviously, our department will be leveraging a lot of local partnerships and our communications and advertisement. And we hope to work in partnership with neighborhood councils so that they can not only help us identify key community partners and support us in developing awareness through the messaging, determining opportunities for engagement, and kind of looking at what methods work best for that particular neighborhood. Along with that, focusing around tools that can empower neighborhood councils to promote the neighborhood council elections process. With identifying key partners, working with neighborhood councils, we hope to cultivate relationships that are already existing. Many of you neighborhood councils provide MPGs to local community-based organizations. So kind of leaning in and using that standing relationship to share information about the upcoming neighborhood council elections, using technology and information sharing. Our department will be creating a lot of templates, a lot of graphics. So being able to share those directly with CBOs and which are community-based organizations, can really play a role in engagement and education. We suggest, and we will work with you. We obviously have a list of community-based organizations from previous election cycles, but we also want to coordinate with neighborhood councils to create lists that are reflective of their current partnerships. This can include individuals who've applied and received MPG grants, nonprofits in the area, homeowner associations, block clubs, local chambers of commerce offices, and local businesses in the area. These are great partners that neighborhood councils and the department can work together to focus on. In addition, we will be developing, as I stated, a suite of resources that's being led by myself and our public information officer, Ava Marinelli. We are going to be providing graphics that will be usable on websites, social media, newsletters, and can also be shared through collateral material like flyers, postcards, lawn signs at in-person events. I think on the screen are some of the graphics, classifications, and type of content that we're going to be creating and sharing. For example, and these cover all the stages from candidate, voter, and get out a vote by mail application. So for focused on voters, and also get out the vote, which is that last phase of the election. And also we'll be focusing on creating materials for post-election. So sharing the results, inviting stakeholders to come to your meeting and meet and engage with the new board. So you can expect to get those for the West Side region. We hope to have those ready to go by the end of next week. Obviously, right in time for the beginning of your candidate filing period. Along with the graphics, we will also be providing copy. So that means contact and text that you can just cut and paste and go, so that your board and your outreach committees don't have to spend so much time creating that content, along with templates to flyers and other things. So just in terms of engagement and awareness methods, I've been interfacing with a lot of outreach chairs who've been asking for guidance on activities that they can lead during the neighborhood council election process. If you have an outreach chair or an election chair, I will be sending this, not only this presentation, but I will be sending the guide for neighborhood councils to expand awareness and use the election cycle as an opportunity to increase awareness of their neighborhood council. So with that said, I'll just kind of briefly go over some of the highlights of the guide. Really just stresses creating a culture of awareness and engagement, engaging board members, specifically those that maybe aren't running for office and are not candidates, partner organizations, so those that have received MPGs, and really kind of use that established relationship to use some of the resources to begin to create a network where you can get the message out. Preparation of your election, of your websites. During election time, many voters or potential candidates may be visiting your websites when they learn that there's a neighborhood council in their community. So being able to have information about the election on your website is key. It's also a great way to engage, like I said, potential candidates, potential voters. So having some of the links that are already shared on our Empower LA Elections page or the City Clerk's page, direct links to those are a great way to help us capture individuals that are visiting your website. And also, as I mentioned, events are key. So using tabling opportunities, canvassing, and any kind of volunteer engagement opportunity to kind of share messaging around the neighborhood council elections will be key, considering that this is an all vote by mail. With that said, we will be working with the city clerk's office to distribute hard copy applications. So next time you see your NEA, please let them know if you would like some hard copy applications. They will be coming to meetings with them throughout each phase of the election cycle. And I can see questions coming in, they're popping up, so I'll make sure to address those. Social media, as I stated, we're going to be sharing a lot of content, whether it be graphics or copy for neighborhood councils to utilize to get the word out, and individual board members as well. So making sure that your neighborhood council has a Facebook, Instagram, a Twitter, I'm sorry, X, I'm still calling it Twitter, Nextdoor, or any other kind of social media platform that really helps to kind of promote and distribute election information is going to be key to help reach a wider audience. A lot of that material we will do our best to kind of translate in-house in some of the major languages. So when possible, we'll provide additional templates on that. Also, consider us a partner to do voter engagement presentations. We have a wonderful presentation about the impact and history of the neighborhood council system. We are more than willing to either be connected to an organization, go out and do a presentation with you, or if you have a great lead and a great organization that you think we can do a presentation to, please connect us, especially during this election cycle. I think anytime that we can have also board members join us and share their experience is a great way to kind of get out awareness about the NC elections. Obviously, I talked about advertisement. Any suggestions or ideas? I know of some neighborhood councils that are focusing some of their budget on mailers, on postcards, on some advertisement. Bus benches tend to be very popular. We will be doing a little bit of that ourselves. So coordination with your neighborhood council is great. If you have, as I stated, any feedback on that, and if we can provide you any guidance, either be it vendors that we've used in the past or that we know other neighborhood councils are using, and templates for designs. And also, there's been a big push in our department recently, specifically to engage the next generation of leaders, which is youth. Many neighborhood councils have youth seats. So this is a great opportunity for us to also look at engagement with colleges and university campuses. A lot of neighborhood councils have those in their service area. So it's also a great way to, and also, to be connected to potential leaders who could very well be candidates or can consider joining a neighborhood council in the future. So with that said, I know there's some questions. Many of you already have my contact information, but I'm sure that in the email that we send out post, I'll be able to kind of share a lot of these resources. So I'll take a look at some of the questions that came in. Let me see, trying to go back. I think I'll start with Kay Hartman and regarding there's no library in Palms. Yes, and there are a couple of neighborhood councils that and I think Michael kind of hinted at that maybe don't have a library within their service area, but just know that all the libraries in the entire region will have applications. So if there's a nearby library that might not be directly in your service area, and like I said, we'll have on our elections page, empowerla.org/elections, we'll have a finder where you'll be able to put your information and it'll give you a full map of where some of the libraries with hard copy information is. Oh, thank you. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Michael, for sharing our websites. Your website, and then I'll go ahead and plug mine as. Yeah, so where is our promotional graphics and content? Well, part of the challenge is you're probably looking at the person that leads this work. I have one, as I stated, one colleague that is working with me on this, and we are putting together a very thorough kit. Part of not necessarily, it's been a strategic decision to also not publicly put out so much information. As you all know, we just went through a national election, and what we didn't want to do was confuse stakeholders, because when they hear elections, they think November 5th. So now that the November 5th election, the voting process for that election is behind us, we're in a very good shape to now start releasing some information about the neighborhood council. So you will, as I stated, be receiving that information by end of next week, right in time, and a lot of it will be ready to go, so cut and paste. And just keep in mind that you have a total of about, I believe, Michael, is at 45 days for the candidate filing period. So we will be doing continuous promotion throughout the 45 days. So I understand the wanting to have the information now. Just know that we're working on it. We're trying to get it out as soon as possible. And it's very tailored to your region and region specific, and we have to kind of duplicate that about 12 times. And also there's different messaging for partners, for regions, and also citywide information. So it'll be a total of 3 toolkits that you will be able to kind of utilize, and we have to create graphics for all those. So we'll make sure to get those out as soon as possible. I don't know if there's any other questions.
There was a question about the election selection option. So just to kind of touch on it briefly, and Mary Lou can probably provide additional info, but NCs do have the option if they would like to hold selections instead of elections. So the whole process that I went through is for neighborhood councils that are going through an election. Selection process is different, and that's basically run by the neighborhood council. They come up with the plan for the execution of the selection. It won't be involved in the same process that I went through. So, Meredith?
Yeah, and I will say, please take a look at, our department sent an email earlier in the week. Please take a look at that email. It included resources that specifically speak to what a selection is, how it differs from an election, and it kind of also walks you through the process of the selection process. I know that the west side neighborhood councils have kind of a short turnaround. So I want to just keep in mind that, you know, if you have any questions, please reach out to your neighborhood empowerment advocate. Let them know what questions have come up. Let them know how they can provide guidance, because it's something that we want to prioritize specifically for the neighborhood councils in Region 11. And, you know, those that have a deadline to select whether they want selection in this month of November. So I see Christopher, our selections, actual elections. It's an alternative to elections. I think it really depends. So it can be very unique. It's tailored to that specific neighborhood council. You can either choose a town hall style selection, or a paper ballot selection. So depending on what type your neighborhood council opts to have, that will dictate a lot of the process. So and yes, that email that was sent out referenced Chatsworth, because Chatsworth is one of the neighborhood councils that does the selection process to seat their board members for a new term. So, and you can reference their process. That is one of the neighborhood councils that has a well-developed manual that if your neighborhood council is looking to have a selection, you can also reference as part of, you know, the decision-making process. But once again, if your neighborhood council is considering potentially doing selection and you have questions, as a start, you can reference that email. It walks you through the basic information. And then secondly, if you still have questions, please contact your neighborhood council advocate so that they can provide you specific guidance. do voters still need to request their ballot with requirements, as with the mail-in ballots? Potentially, yes, depending on the process that the neighborhood council selects or chooses to have for their selection. Also, keep in mind that in the selection process, the city clerk's office is not the administrator. It is a neutral third party. So the neighborhood council will be working with the neutral third party to define the process for their specific selection. The application to inform to inform our department that you want to move forward with selection walks you through all the steps on the framework for your selection process. So it could be as simply as a ballot, or it could be a show of hands to provide a vote during the process. And I'm being very general, because it highly depends on the method that your neighborhood council opts to have for their selection and the mechanism on how votes will be accepted. But just a reminder that you would work with a neutral third party, with guidance and oversight, obviously, from our department.
Great. Are there any other questions? Well, a question just came in. Will any funding be provided?
Sure. And once again, Christopher, I think there's a specific document, and for everybody else, in the email that was sent out by the department, there is a linked document. I believe it's titled Selection versus Election. It walks you through all the differences, including the funding component. So obviously, for the neighborhood council election process, because the city clerk's office is the administrator and the department provides support with awareness and engagement, there is no cost for the election process that's incurred by the neighborhood council or expected to be funded by the neighborhood council. Now, in terms of selection, because the administrator is the neutral third party, the neighborhood council would have to coordinate with the neutral third party for payment to provide services for the selection. So yes, that is something that the neighborhood council should take into consideration, considering that they will have to fund the selection process.
Great. And then I think we'll just open it up to if there's any additional questions, feel free to you can raise your hand, or you can include a question in the chat, whatever works best. Let's see. Maybe there's. All right. Thank you, Teresa, for joining us. Seems like there may be no questions. So with that, I think we'll end this meeting a little bit early, which is great, so everybody can get on with their night. But I thank you everyone for joining us. And what I'll do right now is I'll actually include my email. So if you have any questions, I think everyone got an email from me earlier today, but just in case, I'll include my email. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about the election process. Reach out to your election administrator. We are here to help you. Just really want to stress that. So thank you for joining, and hopefully I'll see all of you and hear from you in the near future. Thank you.